Man, that was an electrifying episode for me. Just to, I mean, again, it was one of those things I talk about. How do you become something you don't see? I'd never seen a Caton Brown.
Man, me either. That's why I said
he's 17.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's why I said that was my favorite episode, because that was like, after leaving that, I felt like I wasn't doing enough.
Right.
I'm like, what?
Welcome to What I Know Now, a podcast that uncovers the stories, experiences, and insights of individuals who have been impacted by the justice system. I'm Cole Williams.
And I'm Joel Van Kuiken. Our mission is to drive positive social change in the lives of system-impacted youth, their families, and our communities.
We sit down with incredible guests who generously share their lived experiences and the lessons they've learned along the way.
Good morning. This is the What I Know podcast. I'm Bilal Arayed.
What's going on? I'm Caton Vance.
I'm Cole Williams.
I'm Joel Van Kuiken.
And today we are turning over a new leaf.
Ooh.
So how do y'all feel?
I feel like a turning leaf. No.
Yeah, we're doing like a season 1 recap.
Yeah.
We're going to look back a little bit on the first whole season of the What I Know podcast.
Yeah. So y'all have successfully completed the first season. How does it feel? What should people look forward to?
I think it feels good. I think when we originally started, I don't know if we knew we would be at a place where we'd have like a full season, but I think it really feels good to have had the guests that we've had on. I think I've never done a podcast fully before. I've been a guest on it, but actually kind of anchoring it and whatever that is, doing it. It's been really amazing. So, and then as it relates to just the Delta Project and, you know, continuing to build our narrative and storytelling around how we see young people in the juvenile justice system, it's just been amazing. So,
Yeah, and I think, you know, this podcast, What I Know Now, we've been talking about this since like 2021 of wanting to do something like this and to see it kind of take shape. And we kind of prototyped it when we started off. I mean, we weren't totally sure where we were going to go with it, but we knew we wanted to do it. And we knew what the thesis was, you know, how we wanted to represent what people have learned, what they've become, and what they learned along the way. So a really cool part of the process for me was interviewing Bilal before he was an intern on the show.
yeah.
And now here he is hosting the show
Yeah.
as a part of the Delta Project. I think that's really cool.
And I think that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah. And then we got Caton, our producer here, just to get his point of view.
Hey, I mean, you're the man behind the scenes, and
Yeah, I mean, the funny part is like I normally am not on camera, especially for when it comes to like the Delta Project, but I am excited to be here and excited to add some, you know, color commentary to everything in regards to like the first season, because I obviously have a behind the scenes perspective of how things have gone.
And Bilal, how does it feel for you? I mean, you walked on being interviewed, and now you are in a different space. So, what's that like for you?
It's a little like, I feel it, you know? It's like a little pressure, a little bit.
A little pressure?
Yeah, because it's big shoes to fill. But all in all, I feel good about it. I feel grateful to be able to.
When you say pressure, what is that? What do you mean by pressure? Because like obviously everybody's experience of that is a little different. To my knowledge, you've not been on a podcast outside of this one before, and then obviously you were one of our. I think you were like episode 5 or something like that of the first season. So like, and you were also like one of our very first like very lived experience. We had a lot of. There were people that were working in the system, from Stacey McGinnis to lieutenants to a lot of people that you had interacted with when you were back in the detention center. But then like you were the first like actual lived experience youth that we interviewed. And that was like as Joel mentioned, right before you became like an official intern with the Delta Project. So like I know that we're going to ask them a lot more questions, but I'm immediately asking you one. So sorry, but like, how has this been for you as like a personal journey? And now like, I mean, we're kind of saying it now, but like, you're going to be the host of season 2. We want you and a few others, like you're going to have some people supporting you, but we really want you to lead this charge. So like, How's that feel from being like, oh yeah, I'm going to share my story, and now I'm hosting this thing?
Yeah.
Like that's different.
Yeah, I guess I ain't never really sit back and think about it. Like, now that I think about it, I actually like watched almost the whole season. Like I've seen it like progress and transform, and it's surreal. It was beautiful. Like it was fun. It was a good experience. It was a good journey, and like yeah, I'm gonna be asking y'all questions, but I kind of like went through it with you all. Like so, it's kind of like it's it's different. It's different. So I don't really know how to feel.
Yeah, but I think feeling that pressure, that's good.
It's good.
Oh,
You want to feel that pressure.
the pressure. Yeah, I totally ain't even answered that question.
No, it's all right.
The pressure, I feel like it come from just the shoes to fill. Like it's big shoes to fill. You know what I'm saying? With Cole, Joe, you know, they've been doing this way before me. Joel been doing this.
These are Joel's.
Yeah, Joel is the expert at this.
Yeah.
So, you know, me coming in.
Well, I think people don't know that Joel has been like doing like radio and hosting radio thing up from how long? You were like
for a
what?
long time.
Yeah, give us
30
a little,
years?
Yeah,
Like,
give us a little bit of that.
I don't think people
Joel, because
understand
people don't
that.
know that.
I mean,
People don't know
actually, 40 years. When I was in
See?
high school, I was on Sunday nights, I would do a radio show of reggae music here in Easttown with a guy named Rasta Manani on WEHB back from like 82 to 85.
That was before I was born.
And soon after that, I went to China and I did a radio show in China with my wife in like 92, 93. And then I worked in TV for a while. I've done podcasts since I produced some podcasts in like 2011. I've been like on the fringes of media and PR all my life. I've never felt myself like this is what I do, but it's something I've always dabbled in and always been a fan of storytelling and kind of building out the proper way to communicate through media and helping people understand that. Media literacy, digital literacy, all the things we need to understand as citizens in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Now, sharing stories and sharing experiences is a big part of the Delta Project. So did it just make the most sense to go towards the avenue of a podcast?
I think so. I think we were trying to find a way to elevate the stories of young people involved in the juvenile justice system while at the same time tell the stories and hear from people that are involved in the system. We thought about a variety of different ways, but I think the podcast just made more sense. It gave us an opportunity and a reason to bring people into the space, but it also gave us an opportunity to connect with people. So I think for me, it was really just about connection, and the podcast is one great avenue and pathway to help people tell and hear their stories. So,
I think it's also an evolution of the conversation series, which is really how the Delta Project started in 2019, which I kind of consider Delta Project version 1.0, when we were going into the juvenile detention center and creating these, video stories of our guys interacting with people from the community. And Caton was the producer of that back in 2019. And with COVID, with the way things shifted.
I think it was all the way in 2017, actually, like even further back when we first started those conversation series, wasn't it?
I think it was late 2018. And then we actually started producing early in 2019 because we did those 5 episodes.
That's right.
But I think we've evolved from that. We can still do a conversation series if we wanted to. But I think now it makes more sense for us to be doing this podcast. And maybe it's not as complex to do this, so we can do more of them. Whereas we could do the conversation series, but it's a bigger production. It takes more work, it takes volunteers, it takes a lot. Yeah,
well, to give some context for those conversation series, we were the young people that were in this at the juvenile detention center. They had a certain amount of availability, and then we'd have to coordinate at least 8 to 10 volunteers each time to make sure that the set would be put up, because we had lighting, 2 cameras. It was an iDirect technology.
Yeah.
There was a lot of elements that went into making those things happen.
Yeah.
And they were incredible. And you should, if you haven't watched them, they're on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Please go and watch them.
And our website.
And on our website. But like they're incredible. But like also this conversation series, if you would want to call it that now, with what I know now, I mean, the whole impetus of this was like sharing system impacted youth stories.
Yeah.
And like, how can we do that in a way that feels approachable,
Absolutely.
comfortable, and human? Because if you don't have those things, like, you're not going to get a real story out of anybody. And I think that we can even go back to your episode on some level where you revealed some things and shared some things, and like your poetry, your art, what Cole meant to you when you were there. Like there was a lot of elements that were just happening that were very organic and very authentic and very real. And the podcast medium is kind of designed for that. And not everybody realizes that when it comes to these conversations, you can actually create an intimate moment between human beings where they can actually be real with each other. And if that to me is where a lot of magic happens, especially in media. And because like, there's a lot of people trying to like be real funny right now. There's a lot of people trying to like get clickbait and like get their attention by they're doing antics. And like, I love some of that stuff, but there's not enough people like having real honest stories about what people are going through, especially when it comes to system impacted youth.
Yeah, I agree.
That was real long-winded.
No,
it's right
that
on.
was right on point.
Yeah, on point for sure.
On point.
For sure. That make me want to dive into like, because you was talking about authentic stories, that make me want to dive into what would y'all say was the most impactful episode?
Yeah.
Including you.
Okay. Well, I'll wait to answer, but I'm super curious about Cole's most impactful episode.
I feel like there were elements of each episode had an impact for me. I think the ones that really made a difference for me happened to be I think Caton.
Caden Brown.
Caton Brown. I really appreciated Stacy, and I think Stacy.
That was like our first actual guest.
And I think for me, Stacy's, because I was a part of the journey. She was a part of opening up the door for me to even get into the detention center. Her opening up that door allowed me to be able to create what we've been able to do. Had it not been for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And so I think being able to sit at a table with the person who opened up the door, gave me an opportunity, believed in me when no one else did, and trusted that I can go into this facility with a group of young people and give them something. I think for me, I'm like, she really set the stage and planted the seed for us to be able to do what we're doing now. So for me, I think
that's cool.
Her role, and then Ayanna.
Ayanna was really good.
She was, just amazing. So I think those were the ones that stood out for me.
You know, this is going to sound a little bit like a cop-out, but I want to say all of them because we kept building.
Yeah.
So each one, we learned and grew, and definitely there are ones that stood out. I'm a big fan of the Michael Rose episode, which hasn't aired yet, but is going to air soon.
Oh, by the time this one comes out, it'll definitely be there. Yeah,
right. It'll be out. It'll be out. And I also, I wasn't here for the episode we did with Jason Smith, but I want to call that out because he was instrumental in introducing us to the Public Welfare Foundation, which kicked in the money for us to start this project and this podcast. They funded the development of our media room, the creation of this podcast, this office, this space we're sitting in.
Yep.
I mean, we wouldn't be here without the Public Welfare Foundation and Jed and that team. So I feel really indebted to them when I look at this holistically, because this is the kind of work and the kind of discussions. These are the kind of discussions that our country needs to be having.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen quickly, right?
Yeah.
We've got to keep at it. We've got to keep producing and keep telling the stories. And slowly but surely, we're going to start to see some positive change occur. Yeah. So, that's kind of my take on it. I've enjoyed every episode.
Yeah, me too.
Kellen Dotson as well. I mean, just hearing from Judge Dotson and his journey, that means a lot to us.
Yeah. I I am kind of torn when it comes to my favorite episode because Kellen's was what
most impactful.
most impactful.
Most impactful.
Most impactful is even better. Okay, I'd say from an analytical standpoint, is it Jakari? Is that his name? Yeah, his episode pushed buttons. Like, it definitely pushed some buttons, and like there was some comments and some thoughts, and people were definitely like, "Wait a minute, who's this young kid saying all this crazy stuff?" Like, but so for me, from an analytic perspective, that one definitely stood out just because of certain. Ayana's also had a lot of people. I mean, some of her YouTube shorts, for instance, and got like thousands and thousands of views, and it obviously elevated some of the attention to the podcast, which was really cool. It's like some of our most viewed content that we've ever made, including the conversation series, which is interesting. Now, my opinion, I definitely it's a toss up between Kellen's and yours because to me, I really love the honest, really vulnerable episodes where someone is just like sharing their heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what changes perceptions. I think that's what actually changes minds ultimately. And that to me is like the whole point of this podcast is to actually change people's perceptions around lived experience humans that they might immediately categorize in certain contexts and not actually give a moment of breath or pause or an opportunity to like witness another human being and like how their story is actually part of your story. Like that, those are the impactful episodes to me.
Wow, that's good, man.
I know y'all not looking at me for me to answer.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I would love to know which one you think, because you've obviously interviewed a bunch of people on the podcast at this point too.
So, okay, I'll answer that, but I got another question.
Okay.
All right. So I did say most impactful, but I want to say, what would you say was your favorite episode of the season? And on top of that, what episode did you think was the highlight of the season?
Okay, that's cool. I like that you're kind of switching it up because you got to think about it a little differently.
I'm thinking about how I showed up in the space. So the one that I think I'm like, oh, had me turned up was Caton Brown.
Yeah.
I was completely...
Everything he said, you literally would move forward.
Yeah, we gonna pull that up. We gonna pull that up.
I would say Caton Brown. What was the second question?
What was your favorite episode and what was the highlight? Like, what episode did you think was the highlight of the season?
Can we talk about Jason Smith? I want.
No, that's going to be in the next season. We're going to put that in season 2.
Let's
wait on that one. Yeah.
Oh, I already talked about it.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Man, I would have to say the interview with you.
Okay, that was the highlight, or that was the
yes. And reason why is that I have to go back to I met you as a boy.
Yeah,
I met you as like a 13-year-old kid in a detention facility and saw you come back and forth, and then meeting you across the table as a man is like a completely different experience for a person that's been doing this kind of work, when you often don't get the opportunity to see what happens to young people when you interact with them over a period of time. So to be able to see your evolution in front of me, it gives reason why the work is so important, why you can't stop doing the work because you don't instantly see change in people, and to recognize that change comes over time. So I think to even just sitting across from you, I'm like, I'm not sure where I was in this space, but you were here, and now to see you in this new space and just positioning is really powerful. So yeah, that did it for me. Yeah, that shaped this for me.
I want to quickly make a comment about that. I think that the coolest part about it is if anyone's actually listened to all these episodes, they can see your transformation through the episodes, because there's definitely, I mean, like, and sorry if this is too critical, but like, a couple of times, like, you're definitely just kind of chilling. Like you're just
Or
you're leaning back and like, maybe I'll ask a question, maybe, but like over time you like slowly start to lean in towards the microphone.
Yeah.
Over time you slowly start to like perk up a little bit more, and then you start asking thoughtful questions and sharing your perspective on what they're sharing. And like as somebody that's in the background, I'm over here like, this is awesome. It's so fun. It's so cool to see. Yeah. But like again, I'm like always in the background, kind of witnessing these things, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add on to that because I saw it too, and I think one of my favorite episodes was Iana, because that was your first episode joining as an intern and as one of the hosts of the podcast. True. So watching you and Iana interact with some shared experiences and really hearing Iana's story, which was really poignant for Cole and I.
Absolutely.
And led to so many things, our first interaction with her. I thought that was really powerful and impactful. And then definitely Caton Brown as well, also, simply because what is going to come out of that. And the relationship that we've started to build with him and what we want to move toward in Kent County based on some of that discussion and the conversations we had. But I agree. I mean, watching Bilal become Bilal as part of this podcast is just like, that's the icing on the cake.
Yeah, for sure.
Making me
You didn't know this is like a hype up of you today? Like that? Actually, you're like supposed to be asking them questions. You just keep turning it back to you.
I'll say the most impactful episode for me, I can pull it up.
I mean, the reason that I do what I do as the paralegal at Sato is because, I left people behind. I left a lot of people behind, and I was told recently I'm an emotionless pit. I don't do well in relationships, and I don't, prison messes you up, especially when you spend 29 years in the prison system. You don't show emotion in there. What you said earlier, yeah, I'm straight. I'm good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's our saying. And one of the most prolific sayings is I don't deal in feelings.
Oh, yeah.
So not dealing in feelings, you suppress a lot and your relationships suffer. But what doesn't suffer is how you feel about the people that you left behind that are going to die in there.
Wow. Why was that so impactful for you?
I'll say like how much it resonated with me, and you could see the emotion coming up out of me. Like you could see it, I could feel it. It was in the air, so it was definitely like it touched me. And even after I left and went home, stuff like that, I still think about it. So yeah, like that's the most impactful for me personally, for sure. Like it's no questioning.
Well, it's not often that you're interacting with somebody that has a very similar experience in regards to like your story. Yeah. And like Greg is out and like doing paralegal work now, which is really cool. But like you both probably know so many people that you interacted with, that you have built relationships with that you might never see again or interact with again or anything like that, because they're still humans.
Yeah.
But I feel like probably for you interviewing Greg and watching that, 29 years, juvenile life without parole. It's different from what you experienced, but it's similar. And you can maybe see what could be for some people that.
Yeah, and for me, like hearing his story and hearing that he had juvenile life, because that was my first offer. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So hearing that he had juvenile life and actually going through it, like I done seen so many of my peers like actually have juvenile life and go through juvenile life. Like some of them still call me to this day, and they call me and we talk and stuff like that, and they still got years on their sentences. So like him actually going through the juvenile life, like that was my first offer. So it definitely resonated with me. And if like I don't know if everybody knows, but me still being on probation and me having my probation is my minimum is 180 months. I don't have a max. So hypothetically, if anything was to happen, God forbid, You know what I'm saying? My minimum would be 180 months. That's 15 years as a minimum. So like it definitely hit, and it definitely like connected with me, like in a place that I could have been and that I could be. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not. So it made me very grateful, and it made me humble, real humble.
Ooh, can you tell me more about the humbling feeling? Like, why did it make you feel humble?
It made me feel humble because that could have been me. Also, I firmly believe that don't nobody sit high enough to look down on nobody. So him being able to like express that was humbling. Like he actually able to express his feelings on what it went through, what it was like going through the prison system. Like one of my brothers was actually in prison, and he don't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
Like not one word about it. Like, yeah, I did it. It was cool. Like it was cool. What do you mean it was cool? Like, but
When you're sitting there, like, clearly it wasn't cool. Like,
right,
yeah.
So it was humbling because it let me know where I could have been, you know, like, and I'm not. So
Can I ask you another question? Does it feel like, do you feel at this point, like when you have these moments of like realizations that like, this could have been me, what does that make you want to do now? Because obviously you're in a completely new spot. You've got your own place. You've got new relationships. You've got people that like love you and support you. And you've got kind of like this larger community. Like, what does it make you want to do? Because obviously this could have been you, but like now you get to a dream, like what's possible.
And to add on to that, what are you doing?
Better question.
No, man.
I like I like how you switch it off on me because I'm about to ask y'all what y'all doing in a minute.
Oh, okay, go ahead. But you go ahead and answer that.
But it feels surreal, honestly, because like knowing that I could have been there, and now like sometimes I get the feeling that I'm not doing enough, and then I remember like I just came home last year, so that slowed me down a little bit. But often I get these thoughts like, because now I'm in a position where I'm doing things that I never had to do before, and I have to think about things I never had a thought about before, like such as like taxes and all that other stuff, you know, real adult life things, right? Things that I never knew the concept of when I was young, or even when I turned 18, I didn't know the concept of. Nobody taught me these things. You know what I'm saying? About credit, loans, debt.
Driver's license.
Driver's license.
Let us not get started on that.
I don't know why it took me so long to get my driver's license, but I got it.
Hey.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, now I constantly get overwhelmed with these thoughts about things that I never had to think about before. And those type of things kind of help recenter my focus back. Okay, like I got to do this, I got to get this done. But sometimes I do oftentimes fall off track, and I get into the mindset that I had before, like a complacency and a stagnant mindset. And I'm still navigating through that, you know what I'm saying? And that could be caused by many things. But I often have to get pulled back from to adult things. Like the adult things that I have to do pull me back. And like the things, and it often pulls me back because things that I was worrying about 3 years ago, I'm not worrying about now. Yeah. So I think about, like now I may be stressing about it, but maybe even a couple months or a year from now, it's not even gonna matter to me. So
it's good, man.
Yeah,
it's good.
I hear you on that. And I think as you get pulled into those things and you start being an adult, don't forget about being a 19-year-old too. You know, don't give up some of the joy of being young and the joy of life, because you got to be locked into being an adult. You got to do this, and this. Yeah, we want to do our work and get our stuff done. We got to breathe too. We got to relax. We probably talk about this a fair amount on the podcast. I mean, I know I bring it up periodically, but we got to give ourselves a break. It's okay to be complacent periodically. You don't have to be go, go, go all the time. Just something our culture tends to push on us periodically as well. Break away from that too. Find your peace, find your time. You know, whether it's alone or with friends, that's important too.
Be still. I had a good friend tell me that.
I heard this phrase the other day, joy is part of the rebellion. So like as you're, even if you're doing very serious work or trying to do advocacy work or working with kids in the juvenile center or mentoring kids that are on the fringes of that, like joy is part of that. Like it's part of like changing the narrative.
Yeah.
That's good.
You guys didn't know you're getting some quotes from the producer, did you?
Some bombs. We need to.
I needed that today. Yeah, you got to have David add that in.
So a couple more questions. I did want to get y'all reaction for a couple episodes.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Which one do you want me to click on?
Couple questions first.
Oh, okay.
Couple questions first. What should people know? And the podcast is called What Do I Know Now?
Yeah.
So of course I have to ask, what do you know now?
Like after the first season?
After the first season,
that you didn't know before? Yeah.
Over the work y'all been doing. Y'all been in this work for Cole's been in this work for over a decade, and you've been in media and working with Cole for a long time now. Delta Project was founded in 2017. So what do you know now from this whole Delta journey, or what do you know now as of completing the first season of a podcast about y'all journey?
He asking you a big question.
That's good because we asked that of our guests too. You know, maybe not straight up the way you're asking it, but that's what we're trying to get at. I'm going.
They both went, wait, hey.
Yeah. I can say this, and I think I said it early. Cole and I talk about this, and they're just things we've learned along the journey. And I think back in 2020, we got some really good advice from this strategist I connected with, and she's just kind of like, do a little bit each day.
Yeah.
You know? Seems pretty simple, but it's pretty powerful. If you're just doing a little bit each day, that's going to add up. And trying to build something sustainable isn't about fast success. It's not about jumping from hitting a home run. You know, you got to hit singles. You got to take your time. You got to work through it. You have to observe and really pay attention and kind of see what does our community need? Do our customers, meaning you, Bilal, the youth that we serve, what are they facing? How are we observing them and really listening to what they're struggling with and what they're passionate about? I think early on, we felt like, we've got ideas, we've got an approach. They're reflections of who we are, but they need to be reflections of who you guys are. Yeah. We can't come in with a solution and think, I figured it out. Well, no, you didn't. You didn't really listen. You didn't see what the real gaps are. So I think for me, on this journey, it's been a way to think through, what does impact really mean? And what does generational change look like? What does systems change look like? And it's not going to happen quickly. Yeah. It takes time.
That's very powerful, especially with the work that we all are doing, y'all guys are doing. It's not a race.
No. So
I definitely need to hear that, especially mentoring and things like that, because sometimes I guess I do think I expect some of them to understand right away, but a little bit every day.
Yeah, there's a reason why patience is a virtue.
Yeah.
Because without it, you're kind of dead in the water.
I also read a quote
Come
the
on,
other
quote
day.
droppers.
You know what I'm saying? I read a quote the other day. I'm gonna need a pew afterwards. But I read a quote. It said, "Patience is not a sign of inaction."
Boom.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I had to store that in my brain.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's very true. Yeah, it's
so
very
true.
true. I mean, especially with what you're talking
so
about,
true.
Joel. I want to hear your answer, but I also want to make a comment. I immediately think of your story with Cole, because Cole met you when you were 13 and you're 19 now, and you just got out last year.
Yeah.
And if Cole was expecting the first interaction or the first 50 interactions that he had with you, for you to be a changed human being, or no, that requires, in my opinion, what a lot of people don't have, which a patience and a grace and a really open hand for someone to just be where they're at.
Yeah.
And that isn't going to dictate how you treat that person.
Yeah.
It's only going to, like, you still are fully in control of yourself in regards to how you show up. But, like, regardless of how that other kid or person or whoever interacts with you, you're still going to show up and love them, provide a space for them, listen to them, just be there. Yeah. And, like, I don't think people understand the impact of just being there.
No, I totally don't think people understand that. I think that what I've seen as a parent, what I've seen working with parents, what I've seen with or have heard from young people, and what I've experienced in relationships is that when you do something, and in society, when you do something that people don't like, when you make people feel uncomfortable, when people don't feel like they're getting something out of it in a way that benefits whatever they've got going on, it could be the ego, it could be whatever, you start to see people disconnect. And I think what I've seen over time with young people is that young people they do what everyone else does. They get triggered and they respond and they react. And I think what I've seen people do is that the way that young people react can be a problem. It could definitely be a problem if it poses any type of threat to the infrastructure of whatever that mindset or the rules might be. And I say change, and I've had to do it, like change happens over time, but I'm not in control of how you change. I'm in control of how I decide to show up. And I think when I learned that showing up just simply meant showing up, and showing up like you don't have to show up dressed up in bells, but like show up and be present with a young person, hear them, listen to them, sit next to them, talk with them, but most importantly, encourage them. And I think young people are asking for that. They're desperate for that. But then when I'm working with parents, I'm like, oh, they're asking for the same thing.
It's almost as we're all big kids that all need love and attention.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like, what does success look like?
Absolutely.
And I think we also live in this society where we've got to measure it.
Yeah.
And I think we run into that. And, you know, it's not something that you're necessarily going to be able to quantify in 1 quarter or 6 months. Sometimes this qualitative work is different. It's deeper. It might take longer. There's where the patience comes in again and doing a little bit each day. No, I can't show you. I mean, I can show you some results, but it's not all about the quantitative numbers. That's just one part of the measurement. And I think understanding that and how everything fits together is a way to better measure where we want to go and what progress can actually look like.
So just to go back to your question, for me, I think what I've learned over this time is that you cannot do this work on your own. When I showed up, I was on my own for a really, really, really long time. And then I met Joel, and then I met Eric, then I met Caton, and then I met this team of people that believed in the things that I was saying. They were listening to the things that I was seeing when I entered into the space on Friday. And I don't think I had very many people listening to what I was saying and seeing as I was leaving the detention center on Fridays. I don't think anybody was listening to me, but I don't necessarily know if I was telling anybody to. So I think when I started talking about it, I was like, oh, okay, people will actually listen to it. And I think and then we built a team, and I'm like, we've got Sean Devon, and we've got Marielle, and we've got this amazing board, and we've got David Turpin. I mean,
Bryson Atkins now.
And
Bilal Reed.
We built a team, and I think now that there's a relief for me. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have to do this by myself, and I can let go of the idea of like, oh, I've got to control this, but this isn't about me, and it's okay to share this and give this so that we can do the work that we originally started. So I think for me, connection, community, and team has been a shift for me because that's not something that I originally started with when I entered the doors of the detention center.
Why did you think you had to do this work alone for so long?
I didn't think people really cared.
I think that is important to say out loud.
Yeah. I didn't think people really cared.
Why? I mean, I'm sure you've encountered people that don't care.
Yeah. I was in the detention center. I was working with probation officers. I was seeing it day in and day out. But on the flip side of that, my own son. So I was interning as a parent with a kid. And so I was like, oh, this isn't something that people even care about. They don't even know what this center is. They don't even know that who the POs are that are working to do the amazing work that they do. Like, people don't know. And so I think that's why we wanted Delta Conversations. I was like, oh, people have to see. They've got to see who's behind these walls. They've got to see what I didn't see before my son was called and we were in front of a judge in the center. I wanted people to see. And now that's what we're doing. So, yeah, that's what I learned. Yeah.
I gotta come with the sound effects.
I think there is a sound effect.
I feel like there's something there. I want to just press one of the
probably
buttons.
hit the button. Which one did you want them to react to?
Caton had me going. What is teen court? Because a lot of people don't know. I know
And that's the
adult
problem.
juvenile court, but I don't know anything about this teen court.
Yeah.
That doesn't even, I've never heard of that. So tell us about that.
That's another part of my mission. That's about to get changed.
Okay. Okay.
But teen court is a juvenile diversion program. So when a juvenile comes through and it's their first offense, and it's a misdemeanor offense in Michigan, this program allows for them to come see a true jury of their peers. This system allows for more agency within youth themselves in a program named after them. It's the juvenile justice system. Why are we surrounded by adults?
I feel like I just want you to just repeat that.
No, honestly.
They need like a bar.
No, that's a really
I've been
good,
saying
We've
it.
been saying it.
Wait, hang on,
We got to do it. We got to have it.
Yeah.
I know we have one.
We got to have it. We got to create that.
headphones?
Nope.
No. I know we have it. Sorry.
The producer coming out.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
can't get him away from the board.
Listen, you see that? He jumped up.
Even when he's on the mic.
They should be coming through. If they're not, then we're gonna.
No,
do it in post.
listen. We need
We're doing it
a.
in post.
Need that John? You just click the John. Feel me? It just busts open. Oh, sorry.
They're good.
No, that's good. Man, that was an electrifying episode for me. Just to.
Yeah.
That, I mean, again, it was one of those things I talk about. How do you become something you don't see? I'd never seen a Caton Brown.
Man, me either. That's why I said
He's 17.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's why I said that was my favorite episode because that was like after leaving that, I felt like I wasn't doing enough.
Right.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, but it was definitely impactful. It was impactful and it was organic and it was genuine.
Yeah.
And it was so much information to retain that you left that podcast smarter than what you came in.
Yeah. Well,
and energized and invigorated.
Oh, yeah.
And this idea that, we're entitled to a jury of our peers,
I
but
thought that was
not if you're
a juvenile.
a juvenile or under
Mind-blowing.
18.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. It's very pragmatic. I think people can relate to that right there, which makes it very powerful. So, yeah, I mean, obviously we were inspired by him, and we're going to take action here in Kent
Absolutely.
County and see what we can come up with to do something similar to what he's doing in Oakland County.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in the works.
Yeah. Shout out Caton Brown for sure.
Yeah.
Shout out Caton. If you're watching this,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. I think we got time for like one more big question for the group. Do you want to do another video or do you want to ask them something specific before as like a wrap up question for season 1 of the What I Know podcast? What I Know Now podcast.
What I Know Now.
Sorry.
that's interesting.
There's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
What's your gut say?
My gut going with the video.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I also want to ask y'all what the next step. What are the next steps?
Can
Oh.
we do that as a wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do video, then that?
Yeah,
All right, which
sounds
one?
good.
Kind of go back to the last question, like about the names that get through around the system.
Yeah.
I definitely always hated the word of the court. I hated that word always. Anytime I heard it, I didn't like it.
What was it about the word that you just didn't like?
It felt like a tie to it for the rest of your life, like you was tied to it, like you was chained to it.
Yeah, I think just the way that we categorize things and things that we kind of take for granted and the words that we use can be traumatic and really
That's a mic
damaging. That's really important to understand how it's impacted you and how it's changed your thinking. I stand by what I said.
10 toes down, baby.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I would give a brief story. So one of the first conversations that I ever had with someone that was in the system was when we were at the Wealthy Theater, and we did one of our very first conversation series with kids that were actually in the detention center. And I had to use the restroom. So I went and used the restroom, and one of the kids was in the restroom coming out, and he was commenting on how everyone was treating them at the Wealthy Theater and how awesome it was. And like, it was like at first I was like, oh, I'm going to have an awkward bathroom conversation, which is always weird, for any human being. But the reality is, like, he didn't, like, as we were walking back to the set, he's like, a lot of people just view us as monsters and they forget that we're kids. And I was sitting there and like, I just felt like I got punched in the mouth, like, properly, because I was like, our first interactions there, everyone's wearing juvenile detention center. They got orange jumpsuits or those blue random sweaters that they were wearing. And like these definitions that we give other human beings, they have a tendency to create a distance between us. Yeah. And they have a tendency to like put them in weird situations where they're called wards of the state or wards of the court, and like, that is a brother.
Yeah.
That is a sister. That is a fellow human being that I share humanity with. Yeah. And and that's not to say that there aren't horrific, terrible things that we can do to each other as human beings. Clearly, open your eyes. We do that. It's a problem. Yeah. However, another injustice that happens right after that is when you begin to give definitions to someone that alienates you from them and makes it justifiable to put an arm out and a distance from them. And like that kid opened my eyes in that moment of like, holy cow, this is like, he's used to people viewing him as a monster. He's used to, and he was 15. He was 15. And I was like, this is wrong. I was like, this is wrong. How can I participate in showing that this is wrong? Because I could feel the injustice in the pit of my stomach. Yeah. Because that's how he was viewed. And I feel like similar to like what you're saying with the ward. Sorry, I just jumped in. I had to share the story.
That's fine. That was right powerful. On. We need a mic drop off of that.
All of that. I think we see kids that find themselves behaviorally acting out as bad.
Yeah.
So it's this concept and idea that you're bad, and what happens to kids that are identified as bad? Then you have to be placed somewhere to be punished, to be fixed. And I think that's a concept that's really interesting to me. Is that when kids act out, they dysregulate. That's a opportunity. That's behavior. Behavior should be an indicator of communication, and that a child is trying to tell you something. But a lot of my work around working with parents is around how do you become a behavior detective? How do you spot and pay attention to what a child is doing so that you don't respond in a way that requires punishment? And oftentimes what I saw happen to kids in our community is that you act out. And we even have parents that have these narratives that when you're being bad, they threaten the detention center. They threaten going to the center. Yeah. And then the kids get there and the kids are like, hey, it's not as bad as you like painted the picture because there's staff here that care. There's opportunities for activities. There's the one-on-one attention that you get. Like there's all these things that they're not necessarily getting at home. And sometimes it's because parents are overwhelmed and stressed, and there's just that stretch in the relationship. But kids who have become identified as bad oftentimes are punished and placed in systems and spaces. And then when you get there, people have this concept that these are super predators. These are monsters who have committed offenses and heinous offenses and crimes. And a lot of times these are kids that are struggling with trauma and mental health, undiagnosed. So it's a host of things.
Yeah.
And we forget that some of these kids are simply just kids.
They're kids.
I got one more thing to add to that. But and oftentimes I can speak specifically towards the Black community. In the Black community, we often tend to change negative ideologies and try to flip them to make them positive. So like the bad narrative, calling a child bad, eventually that bad is going to be something that he's proud of. You know, or something that he or she is proud of. You know, we flip that just how we flipped the N-word. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
just
you
how
bad.
Just how we flipped. We often flipped a lot of negative narratives to make them positive. You know what I'm saying? And we live out through those. So.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Well, I just think it's almost like a caste system. Once you're in it, you're otherized. You're the other. You're the out group. It's kind of like we're going to view you as someone that, you know, we're threatened by. When maybe a kid ran away from home because their family life at home is tough on them.
That's what
They've run away
happened to Yana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then she's put in the mix, and suddenly we've got to like label them and figure out, okay, they're bad, they're otherized. I got to protect myself from these people. That's just, maybe it's human nature, but it's ingrained in many people and it's wrong.
It's good.
From what's next, I can make a quick summary of this one. We're planning on doing a season 2 where Bilal's going to be leading the charge from a host perspective. Joel Cole will be stepping in at certain episodes, especially when it comes to certain guests that we'll have on the second season. But the reality is, like, we want to improve the viewing experience. We want to improve the stories that we're sharing. We want to just keep leveling up when it comes to the podcast as a whole. I know that I love this work. I love witnessing this work. And we just want to keep going. I mean, when this airs, let's see, we'll have episode 13 is about to drop. So it'll be like 14 episodes in one season. And then we're going to turn it over into a new season, leading off with Jason, because there's a lot of initiatives that you guys chatted about. And Bilal, that was your first interview that you led. Yeah. So that's why we want to have that be the first episode of the next season, because you dug in deep. You had lots of questions for him. You knew his whole career. Yeah. Even I saw something that he was like, well, how do you know all this stuff? Like, it's pretty cool. So we want more of that in the second season for sure. But yeah. Any final thoughts before?
I think the passing of the torch is amazing, because I think that's the whole premise and goal of the Delta Project, is to become what you don't see. And I think it's really important to give mics to lived experience young people who are living what we are working to change. And so I'm excited about what the new season looks like. I'm excited about the guest. And most importantly, I'm excited to see the change. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, the podcast is emblematic of the Delta Project.
Absolutely. It's
kind of become, I don't want to say our calling card, but a big part of what we do. And the Delta is about change. And change is about a new generation growing into what they're going to become and who they are, so that they can be the leaders in our community that we need to have a healthy, positive future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess we're gonna wrap it up. This was a good podcast. I feel like it was very impactful. I feel like we wrapped the season up perfectly. I'm excited to start this new journey hosting. I'm gonna be a host. That sound
cool.
That sound cool. I like that.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
But I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you. Caton actually played behind the scenes in a lot of these episodes, so I definitely want to give Caton his
Shout
flowers.
out to Caton.
Because he do his thing
made
all
it
the
happen.
time. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad he on camera.
Yeah.
He tried to slip away, but you know what I'm saying? We had to get him on this, John. But yeah, I definitely want to give you your flowers, because you always do your thing. You're amazing.
David, man.
And David, of course, David. He out there now behind the scenes. So
we'll get him next time. Maybe next season.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. We can't drop that on him. He'll be like, "What are you doing?
What's happening?"
But yeah. So
all right.
Cool.
Thank you.
Wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Check out our programs on the Delta Project's website, thedeltaproject.co. And be sure to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.